First, today we are discussing about the velocity of photoelectrons. First, because in our previous video we have discussed about the photoelectricity, how it generates the photoelectrons. Now we are discussing about its velocity, the injected photoelectrons velocity of that particular photoelectrons. Now, if or whenever the injected photoelectrons, we have assumed that it is passing through a circuit having the potential difference, electrical circuit having the potential difference of 1 volt. Now, if or whenever the electron is passing through the potential difference of 1 volt, so the total energy generates equal to 1 electron volt. This is the total energy generated. Now, how much energy it is generated? 1 electron volt. Where from it gets that amount of energy? Its kinetic energy is converted to the electrical energy, 1 electron volt. Now, what is its kinetic energy? We know that half mv square. This is the kinetic energy of the photoelectrons, which is equal to 1 electron volt. That means the injected electron, when passing through a circuit having the potential difference 1 volt, then the total energy it generates equal to 1 electron volt. That means the kinetic energy is completely transferred into this 1 electron volt. Therefore, the velocity of that ejected electron will be equal to 2 eV divided by m with square root. This is the velocity of that photoelectrons ejected from the metal surface. Velocity equal to 2 into charge of an electron. Velocity, this is the potential difference and this is the mass of electron. So we can calculate the velocity of that photoelectron. So first, calculation of the velocity of photoelectrons. Second, we are coming to explain the Rydberg's equation. Rydberg's equation actually, if or whenever the electron jumps from N2 to N1, where N2 is greater than N1, N2 is greater than N1. That means when it jumps from N2 orbit to N1 orbit, it releases some amount of energy. With respect to this energy, we get the emission spectrum. Now, how can we calculate the emission spectrum or the amount of energy related with this or the wavelength of this particular energy? We can calculate with respect to this Rydberg's equation. So, if or whenever it jumps from N2 to N1, then we first calculate the energy of N2 orbit, and that is equal to minus 2 pi square m E4 z square divided by N2 square h square. In our atomic structure part 1 video, we have discussed how it comes. En2 minus 2 pi square m E4 z square by N2 square h square, where N2 is the orbit from which it jumps, and again En1, that means N1 orbit, the energy of it is equal to minus 2 pi square m E4 z square divided by N1 square h square. So when it jumps from N2 orbit to N1 orbit, the net amount of energy released by this electron equal to En2 minus En1. That means 2 pi square m E4 z square by h square into 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square by subtracting these two. So this equal to del E, the change in energy. That means this equal to h into nu. That means h into c by lambda, because we know that nu equal to c by lambda. That means c equal to nu lambda. That's why h into c by lambda, and that is equal to 2 pi square m E4 z square by h square 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. Now, from this we can calculate 1 by lambda, which is nothing, 1 by lambda, which is nothing but the wave number. Wave number is denoted by nu bar. How can we calculate? We know that lambda distance, when it covers, it produces only one wave. So in unit distance, it produces 1 by lambda wave, that is the wave number. So unit distance, how many number of wave it can produce in unit distance? So unit distance 1 by lambda, that is the wave number, which is we can calculate by using nu bar, by denoting. So nu bar equal to, divided this by hc, 2 pi square m e4 z square by ch cube into 1 by n1 square minus 1 by n2 square. Therefore, we can see that the 1 by lambda, that means Rydberg constant, that means 1 by lambda, that means the wave number which is denoted by the nu bar equal to some Rydberg constant of hydrogen atom. This is the Rydberg constant of the hydrogen atom. This is the Rydberg constant of the hydrogen atom, 2 pi square Me4 by Ch cube into Z square into 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. So this is the Rydberg constant of hydrogen atom, the value of which is 109637 centimeter inverse. So into Z square 1 by N1 square minus 1 by N2 square. Now if or whenever N1 equal to 1 and N2 is greater than 1, the series of spectral lines obtained, because for this particular equation we get different lambda values, so series of spectral line obtained, and that series is known as the Lyman series. Lyman series, which lies in ultraviolet region. But when N1 equal to 2 and N2 is greater than 2, Lyman-Balmer series. This is Balmer series. Only this series, the wavelength lies in visible region. But when N1 equal to 3, N2 is greater than 3, Balmer-Paschen series. N1 equal to 4, N2 is greater than 4. Bracket series. And N1 equal to 5, N2 is greater than 5, that is Pfand series. And beyond this we get an Humphrey series when N1 equal to 6 and N2 greater than 6, but all these series lie in the IR region or far IR region. It produces Humphrey series. So these are the series from which we obtain from Rydberg's equation. Next part, calculation of number of spectral lines. How can we calculate the number of spectral lines obtained when an electron jumps from M2 orbit to N1 orbit? And always M2 is greater than N1, so the emission spectrum will be obtained, number of spectral lines will be obtained, but we have to calculate the number of spectral lines for this particular spectrum. Now here see that electron jumps from 5th orbit to 2nd orbit. What are the possible spectral lines obtained? It may jump from 5th to 4th, so this is the first spectral line. 4th to 3rd, second spectral line. 3rd to 2nd, third spectral line. Direct 5th to 2nd, that is the 4th spectral line. 5th to 3rd, that is the 5th spectral line. And 3rd to 2nd, that is the 6th spectral line. So total 6 spectral lines are obtained. But this calculation easily can be calculated, the number of spectral lines can be calculated, that means number of spectral lines can be calculated by using this easy formula, N2 minus N1 into N2 minus N1 plus 1 whole divided by 2. By using this formula you can calculate the number of spectral lines obtained. Here N2 is 5 and N1 is 2. Here also N2 is 5, N1 is 2 plus 1 divided by 2, and see that 3 into 4 by 2, which is also equal to 6. And that's why we may say that through this equation we can calculate the number of spectral lines obtained when an electron jumps from N2 to N1 orbit. Clear? Now, significance of the negative electronic energy. See that we have already discussed in our class 1, atomic structure, period 1 or part 1, that E of nth orbit equal to minus 2 pi square m e4 z square by n square a square. See that here the energy is in negative sign. That means the negative energy source. What does it imply? What is the significance of the negative electronic energy? See that theoretical significance is that this is the mathematical expression, but the theoretical significance is that if or whenever the electron moves freely in atmosphere, no nuclear attraction operates on it, so it is completely free. Force of attraction is zero. So that's why energy equal to, we know that force into displacement. So whatever may be the displacements, as the force of attraction is zero, so the energy of it is zero. Now, so if or whenever the electron moves in atmosphere in free space, its energy becomes zero. Now, if or whenever it comes nearer to the nucleus due to the attraction, nuclear attraction, it comes nearer to the nucleus, to the first orbit, second orbit, third orbit, whatever may be. Now, when it resides in a particular orbit, it gains stability. So, due to the gaining of stability, releases some amount of energy. It releases some amount of energy because we know that the releasing of energy means the stability increases. So, we know that when the electron comes in an orbit nearer to the nucleus, due to its electrostatic attraction, force of attraction, it gains stability and moves around the nucleus in a fixed particular orbit known as the quantized orbit according to the Bohr's theory. So in that particular orbit, it gains stability, hence it releases some amount of energy. What was its initial energy? That was zero. Now from zero it releases some amount of energy, so now it becomes negative. So in a particular orbit, in Bohr's orbit, its energy becomes negative. This is the theoretical significance of the negative electronic energy. Now the next point is limitations of Bohr's atomic theory. Limitations of Bohr's atomic theory. The first point is, we know that Rutherford's model as well as Bohr's model is a two-dimensional model. Two-dimensional model center, it contains a nucleus, and around the nucleus the circular orbit forms and the electron moves around these circular orbits. So it is a two-dimensional theory, but actually we obtain that is three-dimensional. The electronic system, that means the atomic system with the nucleus as well as with the electron, is a three-dimensional one. So two-dimensional theories completely failed to explain the three-dimensional nature of the atomic system. Second point, not applicable in case of multi-electronic atoms. Multi-electronic means only in case of hydrogen and such type of monoelectronic species like helium plus, lithium 2 plus, beryllium 3 plus. So Bohr's theory is only applicable in such species, but not applicable in case of multi-electronic atoms, more than one electron system. That means instead of hydrogen, it cannot explain the atomic system or atomic structure of the helium, neon, lithium, beryllium, etc. and so on, which has multi-electron. So it cannot explain the multi-electronic atomic system. Now third, further subdivision of spectral lines. What does it mean? We know that when we observe the spectral lines with a more delicate instrument, spectrometer, then we can see that the single line is the further subdivision association of some spectral lines. That means the spectral line is further subdivided into finer lines. But why? It cannot be explained by the Bohr's theory due to the presence of the subcell. So the Bohr's theory only explains the cell but not the subcell. It is based on the Sommerfeld's theory. So subcell concept is completely unexplained by the Bohr's theory. So Bohr's theory cannot explain the further subdivision of the spectral lines of the atomic spectrum actually. Fourth, cannot explain the Zeeman and Stark effect. What is Zeeman effect? If or whenever the electron is placed, that means the atomic system, the electronic system is placed in between the magnetic field. So a magnetic field, in between the magnetic field, it affects the electronic spectrum. A finer subdivision of spectral line obtained. Why this finer subdivision of spectral line obtained? Because due to the presence of three-dimensional orientation of the orbital in space. So this is the reason. But Bohr's theory is a two-dimensional theory. It cannot explain the Zeeman effect. That means the further subdivision of the spectral lines due to the presence of an external magnetic field cannot be explained by the Bohr's theory known as the Zeeman effect. Again, such type of further subdivision of spectral lines can be obtained in case of an external electrical field, which is called the Stark effect. This also cannot be explained because This is also a three-dimensional model. Actual model is three-dimensional, but Bohr's theory is a two-dimensional model. So it cannot explain the actual reason of the Zeeman and Stark effects. Now, the last point is Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. What it concludes actually? See that suppose this is a board, lights, that means photons strikes over it. Now photon has energy. If we actually blow a bulb of 1000 watt here, so energy strikes over this surface per unit time, that means per 1 second, in 1 second will be very high. But that amount of energy is not sufficient to move this board from here to there. So a mechanical force we have to apply to move this board. So that amount of photon, that means that amount of energy which a photon emits from a 1000 watt bulb is not sufficient to move this board from here to there because it is a macro particle. But if we want to measure the size of a tiny ant, so if we want to measure the size of the ant, we have to find out the edge of the ant. Suppose A, B. We have to measure the length between A and B. So, as the length is very small, we have to strike more and more, that means intense light over this. What does mean the intensity? What does it mean? We know that already in previous class we have discussed that the intensity means number of photons strikes over a particular surface. So, photon means amount of energy. So that amount of energy repeatedly, that means number of photons strikes over the surface will be greater to increase the intensity. So that's why huge amount of energy will strike over this particular region A to B, that amount of energy, because it is a tiny particle, its mass is very small, so that amount of energy may be effective to move that particle from here to there. So now we can say that we can't say about the fixed position, as well as the velocity of that particular small ant. And this is the basic part of the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Atom, we know that which is the tiniest particle of the substance, and if or whenever the photon with higher energy strikes over the surface to examine the actual velocity as well as the position of a subatomic particle like electron, proton and such type of particles. So by gaining the energy from the photon, it readily displaces from one part to the other, and that's why we cannot find out its actual position as well as actual momentum, that means actual velocity of that particular particle. So these are the uncertainty, the position as well as the momentum. Position we cannot find out properly, so there is an uncertainty in position denoted by del x, as well as uncertainty in momentum which is denoted by del p, which is nothing but m into del v. So these two, according to the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, del x into del p is greater than equals to h by 4 pi. This is the actual uncertainty principles equation, Heisenberg's uncertainty principles equation. Now the next point is de Broglie's equation. We know that Max Planck and Einstein proposed the mass energy relationship in a particular particle. Mass energy relationship. First, what is the mass energy relationship? We know that mass energy relationship indicates that according to Planck's theory, E is proportional to nu, that means E equal to h nu. E is equal to h nu. A particle has a wave nature, so it implies the wave nature of the particle. It implies according to Planck's theory. Now according to Einstein, how energy is related with the mass? We know that E equal to mc square. This is the mass energy relationship. Here mass, that means it is a particle nature. So by combining these two, because both explain the same amount of energy E, so by combining these two we can write that h into nu equal to mc square, and we know that since nu equal to c by lambda, so instead of nu we can write here h into c by lambda equal to mc square. Therefore cancelling c from both the sides, we get h by lambda equal to mc. Therefore, lambda equal to h by mc. For light, the velocity is c. For other particle having the velocity v, we can write lambda equal to h by mv. For other particle having the velocity v instead of light, for other particle having the velocity v, but we know that, so we can see from this equation, this is known as the, or this is also known as the de Broglie's wave equation for the dual nature. Therefore, lambda is proportional to 1 by mv. Because h is constant here, we know that Planck's constant. So lambda is proportional to 1 by m. Because if or whenever the v is constant for a particular particle, lambda is proportional to 1 by m. That means with the increase of the mass, lambda decreases. So for the macro particle, lambda is very much negligible. When a ball moves, when a bus moves with a particular velocity, its lambda is very much negligible. So they have no wave nature. But if or whenever mass is very small, for a subatomic particle like electron, proton, neutron, etc. and so on, mass is very small. So lambda is very high. For these particles, lambda, that means they have the wave nature. So for the subatomic particles, it is very much significant, the dual nature, de Broglie's wave equation, because for the subatomic particles, both wave and particle nature are obtained for that particular subatomic particle. Now we explain the equation of the dual nature, that means de Broglie's wave equation by Bohr's theory. First, we have drawn two different circular orbits in which the electron moves in wave pattern. In the first part, this is suppose the first wave and this is the second wave. The electron revolves around the nucleus in different pathways. See that this is the first pathway, this is the first pathway, but it follows a secondary pathway in the second part. But here it follows the same pathway always. It follows the same pathway, it follows the same pathway always. Now in this case, in some part, when two waves are in phase, first wave starts from this and second wave superimpose on it. If or whenever they are in phase, due to the interference, the energy increases. But if or whenever they are not in phase, they are out of phase, the energy decreases. So in a particular orbit, in this pattern, in this first pattern, in a particular orbit, the energy of the electron fluctuates. Sometimes it increases to the maximum, sometimes it decreases to the minimum. In between these two, the velocity lies. So it fluctuates. But we know that in Bohr's theory, the velocity of the electron remains same. That means the energy of the electron also remains same. Here, in this orbit, it obeys the Bohr's theory because it continuously shows the same pathway. That means it maintains the same energy level. This is the quantized orbit. So in this case, we know that according to Bohr's theory, mvr equal to m into h by 2 pi. This is the quantized orbit equation of the quantized orbit. The angular momentum of that electron equal to the principal quantum number n into integral multiple of h by 2 pi. Now we know that lambda equal to, since lambda equal to h by mv, we know that lambda equal to h by mv. Now putting this equation, if we draw that, see, instead of h by mv, so here 2 pi r equal to n into h by mv, n into h by mv. That means 2 pi r equal to n into lambda. So if or whenever, suppose in this particular orbit, this is known as the Bohr's stationary orbit, Bohr's stationary orbit. In this orbit, whatever may be the value of n, suppose lambda is the wavelength of that particular wave of the electron moves around the nucleus. So lambda wave, that means in particular lambda wave, it displaces for particular space. So for lambda wave, lambda displacement, it produces only one wave. So 2 pi r is the circumference. 2 pi r is the circumference of the orbit. To displace 2 pi r, it requires 1 by lambda into 2 pi r. This is the number of wave. 1 by lambda into 2 pi r. That means here from 2 pi r by lambda. This is actually 2 pi r by lambda. This is the number of wave. Number of wave to complete the circumference. So 2 pi r by lambda, from this equation we get 2 pi r by lambda equal to nothing but m. That means the number of orbit. Number of the orbit. That means from this expression we can conclude that to complete the circumference of a particular orbit, whatever may be the value of n equal to 1, 2, 3 and 4, the total number of wave forms equal to the number of orbit. So in the first orbit only one wave is sufficient to complete the circumference. In the second orbit 2 waves required. Third orbit 3 waves required. This is proved by this expression.